Hello? Hello? Welcome to the July 2023 Power Platform Community Call. Who's calling to community? Welcome everyone to this month's community call. It's awesome. It's going to be so fantastic. Let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today. We're going to have the latest updates from news on Power Platform. We're going to hear about some upcoming events in the community. We're going to have our fantastic picture time. Get those fantastic faces ready. Then our all-stars of the day, Michael Roth is going to talk about Dataverse environment permissions for Power Platform. Then Lewis is going to cover improving UX with contextual data using Microsoft Graph and more. And then our favorite Azure McFarlane is going to be pushing the platform with the power of Docusign and Automate. So we are excited. But first, let's talk about some details of the call. This call is for you, everybody. We want you to demo. We have amazing presenters today. You're an amazing presenter. Don't overthink it. We welcome everyone to present on this call. That means if you've got some technical pattern that you'd like to show off, if you've got a favorite feature you'd like to show off, if you've got a tip or trick you want to show off, we welcome it. All you have to do is put in a little request. We made it even easier for you. Just fill in this form. Go to aka.ms/community/request/demo, because we love the slashes, everybody, and fill that form in, and we'll contact you and we'll get you set up with a session. Now, if you are a little nervous, if you've never presented on the calls before and you're thinking, I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to do that alone, we got your back too. Just let us know in that form you want a buddy. We'll buddy you up with another member of the community, a member of the community calls, or anyone else that would like to help out. And you will work on it and collaborate on it together, and it'll be awesome. And you'll share it with everybody in the community, and we will applaud you, and you will love it. So please, don't hesitate to get involved. Reach out if you have any questions, and we absolutely want to see you getting more involved on these calls. All right, let's start out with some little news. Let's go to the news desk with Daniel Laskewitz and power it up.
Ooh, I'm still getting used to all the jingles. But let's go with the news updates. This is a selection of news updates of the last month. And the first one is about Excel to Table to App is now in public preview. You can see a GIF animation or a GIF animation on the right side. And it will help you a lot with creating an app from Excel file. Next, there's also co-authoring in the modern app designer, which is generally available. So if you are building the model-driven apps, you can do co-authoring now. There's a lot of new updates about modernization in Power Apps, both for Canvas apps and model-driven apps. And last but not least, there's also the Power Platform Developer Tools May update that Kartik Kanakasabasan wrote, and that includes all kinds of Power Platform CLI updates. But there's also a new thing that came out yesterday, and that's the new release notes from the Power Platform. So make sure to look at those, because those contain all the releases that are coming out in the upcoming half year. So make sure to check that one out. And let's go to the next slide, because I love that David always enjoys hearing that. But
I do. I love it. I love it.
Next slide, please. No, we also have a Power Platform Tech Talk nowadays. So if you aren't following it yet, make sure to do that. Go to aka.ms/powertalk, and it will link you straight to the Power Platform TikTok profile. And we will post all kinds of quick tips on there, because TikTok needs to be fast. So it's 1 minute tops per video. And
Daniel, we're almost at 1,000 followers, right?
Almost there. You can see in the screenshot we are at 993, but I hope we are going to make it to 1,000 with all these lovely people on there. There must be some hip people who use TikTok, right?
I think we can do it. Yep. Come on, everybody. Let's get us over 1,000.
Yeah, awesome. Let's go. And then next slide, please. the Power Platform samples. We have a bunch of new Power Platform samples. We have Craig White, who created the JSON and parse JSON PowerFX functions sample, which is really, really cool. Make sure to test that one out as well. Katarina made the SharePoint site assistant. She previously created a sample that created a team, but now she is back with a SharePoint creation app. And that's also really cool. And Ashwin, last but not least, he created an independent publisher connector before about the Rijksmuseum, which is a Dutch museum. And he also created a sample app to use that independent publisher connector. So with that, we are done with the samples.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Well, normally I'd hand it over to Jocelyn, but she is on a well-deserved vacation. So we're just going to cover it for her today. Not a lot of new news, but it is fantastic to see the number of connectors that are available. And if you look at that graph, 292 independent publisher connectors. That is awesome. That is you all doing amazing contributions in the community. So thank you to our most recent independent publisher connectors, Ray, Andres, Troy, and fellow Ray. Now, you can absolutely contribute as well. In fact, there are connector asks. Just go to that GitHub URL. I threw it in the chat for you. Reach out to Jocelyn. Let her know if you have any questions. It's super easy to create a connector. Feel free to get involved and ask any questions if you'd like. Now, you saw all those samples that Daniel talked about. Well, everybody, Sharing is Caring is back. It's back. We finally got some dates scheduled. The Power Platform Samples Contributor is coming up next week. These sessions are live guidance sessions in a safe space opportunity. And what does that mean? It means that we're going to join a Teams call live together. We're going to walk through a variety of topics. In this case, we're going to show you how to create a pull request within GitHub. It's so easy, but you see all those terms and phrases like fork and raw and blame, and they're scary and they mean weird things. So we're going to figure it out together. And it's safe space because we don't record it. So you're going to feel free to ask any and all questions that you'd like without worrying that it's going to get recorded. I know I'm always wondering, is this going to get recorded? And I ask a question, does everybody know? No. It's okay to ask questions and we're not going to record it so you feel comfortable. We now are building it based on Teams webinar as well. So it's super easy to go aka.ms/sharingiscaring, get signed up. You'll get an instant invite in your inbox immediately. No more delays. It's going to be awesome. So next week, July 26th, register today. Take advantage of it. We absolutely welcome you. It's a wonderful way to get involved with other members of the community, the MVP community, members of Microsoft. It's a fantastic way to collaborate. So we invite you. Now, once you have contributed to the community, of course, we want to recognize you for all the amazing work that you're doing, and that's where our community recognition program comes in. It is powered by Credly. Yes, that same Credly that creates those badges that used to get for the certifications. I know those are no longer happening, but we are still here for you. These badges are, in fact, going to go up in the number of initiatives and programs that we have to recognize the work that you're doing. We've got some upcoming badges for some hackathons, which we'll talk about in a moment. And we also are going to be creating other seasonal and thematic. We know that we're getting now into the middle into summer. So we're going to have things like Hacktoberfest coming up again. And of course, our season of Getting is going to be back again, and some other fun initiatives that we're working with. So we just need you to opt in. Super easy. It's managed by MailChimp. So just go to ak.ms/community/recognition, opt in. If you're already opted in, it'll let you know. And of course, if you change anything like your GitHub profiles ever, you absolutely can modify that as well. So we encourage you to do that. Now, there is a couple of hackathons coming up. So I'm going to hand it over to Hugo Bernier to tell us about one of those. Who is muted? Who is unmuting?
All right. So, hey, welcome everyone. We are planning on having our first ever Power Pages hackathon. You know, Power Pages is probably the easiest way to extend your Dataverse and Power Platform infrastructure to the internet and to extend to your partners, your vendors, your customers, even the public, and do it in a secure way. Now, the one thing we all need to remember is once you have reached the limits of what Power Pages can do out of the box, you're still left with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So your ability to innovate and to create is infinite. And we'd love to see what you can come up with using the Power Pages and your creativity. So we have a hackathon coming. Showcase your skill and imagination. Now, this is a preview. The hackathon has not been officially started or announced, but if you are interested and you want to register your interest, you can go to Power Pages hackathon/register. Now, I'm not a designer myself, but I do like to think that I'm pretty good at designing good UI and good experiences. So I dabbled a little bit. And, I'd like to see what you think. My colleague said I should definitely not participate in the hackathon. I think it's because they think it would be unfair for me to participate for everybody else. But let's see if you can do better than this. So go to Power Pages hackathon/register. Let us know you're interested, and we'll have some cool stuff happening, including badges. And
badges.
Yay! The other thing to consider is if you are interested in learning more about Power Pages, you don't have to wait for a live event. We actually have Power Pages in a day. So you can go to aka.ms/Power Pages in a day and actually build your own website in a day, less than a day, hopefully, using Power Pages. And that's it for me. I can't wait to see what you have to contribute in the hackathon.
Awesome. Thank you, Hugo. When you said infinite, how much is that? Infinite.
I don't know.
It's a lot. It's a plethora. Okay, everybody, let's talk about some shows and events that are coming up and available for you to take advantage of. We'll hand it back to Daniel to talk about the low-code revolution.
Yes, I can keep it pretty short because we only had one episode this month, and this one is about PCF together with Diana Berkelbach. So I don't know if you saw it already, but make sure to click the link in the chat to see the latest episode and watch it.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. You are right. That was short and sweet, but fantastic. So thank you. All right. We've got some other events coming up, everybody. As we know, we're getting back in person to things. So we've got the 365 and Power Educons coming up in Seattle in August. Definitely take advantage of these. You can save 25% off with the code community. And then, of course, everybody's starting to get excited for the Power Platform Conference coming in October. You do not want to miss any of these events in the community. Educon Power Platform Conference. Definitely go get registered. It is going to be epic. Legend. I hope you're not intolerant to dairy. Legendary. All right, check it out. And of course, you can always see all the other events at aka.ms/community days. And you can, of course, submit your events to this as well. So go check it out, aka.ms/community days, to see all the amazing events that are going on in the community and submit your own. All right. Well, what time is it? Picture time. Okay, so turn on those cameras. Let's see those fantastic faces. I'm going to set up here together mode. Let's see, do that, and turn on that. And here we go. Move that over there. Move you all over here. Come on, teams. You can do it. Is it loaded for anybody else yet? I see. I can hover all over you, but apparently you're not there. Look at that. That is weird. Let me try and change to speaker and change to together mode again. There we go. Excellent. Okay. Whew. Teams is working. Technology. Let me start. Okay. All right, everybody. Let's start waving and show the community how awesome you are. Daniel's got the super great smile. Looking fantastic, everybody. Great to see so many on the call. Really appreciate you all showing up to be able to support and learn together. So excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so, so much. All right. Well, now let's move on to our amazing presenters for today. We are going to start with Michael on Dataverse environment permissions for Power Platform. So, my friend, as soon as you are ready, feel free to take on over the screen. And while he's getting set up, everybody, there seems to be a little bug in Teams. If it doesn't revert back off of together mode, just do it off of your view, and you'll be able to change that.
All right, I think I'm ready. Let's see. I just need to find the right window to share. You should see my screen, right?
I do. Looks great. Take it away.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, everybody. So, this is a quick one. I'm Michael, for everybody who doesn't know me. Quick introduction, I'm a Business Apps Applications MVP. I work as a manager of experience tech, and I know that nobody knows what that means. I love this confusing title. I work as a Power Platform consultant, solution architect, and I can focus on the most fun topics in the Power Platform governance and administration. Yeah, I am a speaker and a blogger if I'm not horribly overworked, which I am right now at the moment. As you can see on the left side, I've been busy in the community last year. This is all 2022, and I really have to change that. And yeah, I'm almost afraid to say that I work part-time as a graphic designer, but I saw Hugo's awesome Power Page earlier, so maybe I should step back and let him take over. All right. Now I'm clicking and nothing's happening. So yeah. Okay, here we go. David said it, Dataverse environment permissions for Power Platform. That's a mouthful. Staring a little bit of Azure and a little bit of Dataverse. And this is actually one of my favorite features in the last couple of weeks, actually. I'm going to blog about it if I have time. But I thought when David asked, I might show you as well. And Dataverse environment permissions is a very long word and a very long term. It's basically known as Dataverse teams. Not Dataverse for teams, but Dataverse teams. There's a little bit confusing naming actually, and yeah, sorry for the theme and the colors. I was a little bit inspired by the 80s when I made this presentation, but yeah, now you have to go through it. Okay, Dataverse teams. I have a little story for you. Meet LTSU. LTSU Security is a security company. The LTSU basically stands for lock this stuff up. And they are a security company providing security solutions for their customers. And LTSU is awesome, as you can see from the logo. And since they are awesome, they are using the Power Platform. So what they have a special sales team. That's called the security sales team. And they do have their own environment. They realized and they know that if they want to provide the best service for their customers, they do have to utilize the Power Platform, and they know their governance, so they come up with an environment just for their sales team. In this environment, they use basically Canvas apps, model-driven apps, flows, and Power Virtual Agents. They're not really a fan of Power BI, I don't know why though. And as you can see here in the corner, they have a security group, and this pointer should be flashy, but doesn't work. Okay. So they have a security group in there so that not everybody in the whole company has access to this environment, because they have a database attached to their environment, obviously, as you can see, and they have their customer data in there. And they are pretty huge and successful company, as you can see from some of their customer brands. They got Azamon and the brand down there, that's one of my favorites, GhostBoards. So they have huge customers, right? And so that is the initial idea. If you have customer data, you don't want to have everybody in your company have access to this data. So they put it in their own environment, locked it up with a security group. So just people in security sales business unit are able to access those data, which is smart, which is nice. All right. They have a huge team. As you can see from these huge brands, they have a lot of data and these are huge customers. And this is not a job for just a few people. They need a huge, huge team to work with all this data. And what you usually do, if you want to handle lots of data in a very appropriate way, you use a Power App. For example, Customer Success App to just handle all this data according to your needs so that it doesn't get confusing. So that's what happened at LTSU. They have their security sales environment. They have so many customers with so many data. So they come up with this customer success app and they're using that. And since the team is quite a lot, there are lots of team members actually up here. They're not just working for all the customers. They have key account managers and people who work just with certain customers. As you can see here, some of them are just working for this orange brand, some with this off-white brand, and some for this blue company, whatever that may be. And the point is, as soon as you start to utilize a Power Platform within those Dataverse environments, you will need certain roles within this environment. I think you're pretty much all aware of those. And in this environment, we need some system admins, some makers, and some users, because not everybody needs to get edit rights on this data. but some are just users. So this is kind of a thing that I would usually start with. I go to the admin center, I go for my users in the environment, and I would assign the security role according to their needs. But as you can see, this team is kind of huge and big, and it gets even bigger. So in the beginning, I can do that. If I have like 10, 15 people or user in my environment, then I can assign the user group the security role, which I've indicated here in those designs. I can do that manually, but when the team grows, as you can see, it does grow, then it gets like a lot. And luckily, we do have Dataverse teams. So now it's still more people coming. The company is growing, which is great, still growing. Okay, at a certain point, you won't assign security roles manually anymore. So that now it's time for Dataverse Teams, the demo. Woohoo! Okay, and now I need to switch over. Great, got all my emails open here. This one is good. Okay, you can still see my screen, right? Yeah. That looks good. Okay, I'm here in my Power Platform Admin Center, and I have this security sales. This is my environment that it's all about. And let me show you real quick. Yes, I do have a security group here, security sales security group. So everyone who is part of that security group can access this data. I want to show you real quick how it looks in Azure, because I've created a few more groups actually. And let's see. AAD groups, here are my groups. Let's see. Down here, make it a little bit bigger. Here's my security group that handles the environment, and I created 3 more groups because sometimes I need to reach multiple people at once. So I have my security sales admin security group, my security sales maker security group, and the user security group. Basically, they are according to the rules and roles that I need in my environment. So what I do usually, if I go to settings and let's check my users. I have a few of them here. So Andreas, if I would like to see to get him the correct security role, this is usually what you start. You select the security role and assign it to him, and that's the point. But I do have many users now, and I need to assign the security roles to multiple people. So it doesn't work in the user settings. It might work in the security roles settings. If I go, that was my first idea actually. When I just click a user role, let's say basic user, and then I click on members, that sounds like I could add multiple members at once, but I can only add people here. So once again, I can search for a mail, an email address, or a team name. And this little indicator is quite important, actually. I thought at first I could assign a group here, security sales admin, for example. And if I try that, security sales, nope. No user or teams found, because this is really important. It says teams and not groups. So I was trying to add a group, and that where I started. There was a point where I started to work because I'm really lazy. Let's go all the way back. This is on the front page. Luckily, I have my teams here, and if I click on that, I click on the teams. I have just the basic team that is created when you create the environment. If you create a new team, then what I do usually, I create a team for each of my groups that I have here. And I will start with the admins and just show you this one example. I will just copy the name. As I mentioned, I'm really lazy. So I will create a new team and I call it Sec Sales Admin Team. I will leave the description for the moment. The business unit, I only have one within this environment. Administrator, put in my admin account right now, and the team type, I use the owner type because I want that team to not only have a security role, but to own their records, basically. And if I click on next, now here's the cool part actually about it. So loading is not the cool part. Okay, I can add now team members. And let's I will just add this one team member for the moment. And now I can choose my security role. And it all looks very basic right now. What am I looking for? Environment maker. Let's go with that one. Here we go. Now we have that team. And still going. The point is, and you can't really see or show that. Okay, if I manage the security role, no, I can just see the security role here. The point is, everyone who is a member of this team also now inherits the security role that I gave to this team, which is the environment maker role, which was a little bit stupid because this is the admin team. So maybe I should correct that. This is the admin team, so they shouldn't have the role environment maker, but the system administrator role. Where we are, here we go. Now everybody who's part of that team will get the security role. And the thing that I really like about it, what I usually do with every customer I have, and I hardly see that out there in the world with my customers, I use those teams and hook them up with security groups from Azure. Because that way I can assign security roles and manage the security level not on a user basis, but on a group basis. And this one is really cool. I can even go a little bit further if I came up with those groups, and I have a group for all my different people and my roles. Let's see. There was the admin role, the maker role, and the user role as well. This one is just for the environment, the security group, to secure that environment. So everyone is part of that group, everyone in the security sales department. And then according to their role, they get one of those groups. What happens when I use those groups as well is that when I have an app or a flow that I want to share, I can share with the whole group. So then it's easy to see and set with sharing the app to set their access rights straight, because this is basically done. If I do I have my app here? Yep, the security sales customer success app. If I want to share it and I just want to share it with my admin team, for example, I will see those mails here. And I know that the security roles are set up front. So this makes it really easy to set who is allowed to see which data and who can do what in this environment. And the cool thing is, oh, no, that wasn't what I wanted to do. And the cool thing is, basically like on SharePoint, you will manage the whole thing on a group level and not on a user level. So if I would sum it up, that the benefits are, and this is the point, is actually the Dataverse environment permissions for Power Platform or Dataverse teams. I can hardly see that out there in the wild, which is a shame, because you have a very granular level of access and security within your environments, and even within those environments, you can see who is allowed to use which data or who's only to see which data. The approach is based on groups, so you don't need to manage individual users. That makes it super easy to scale it up or down. I was demonstrating that earlier. When the team is growing, then it's really, really easy to add people to this Dataverse team. And the cool part, which I really like, is in the Azure AD connector, you have this action add user to group, and then you can add your users to those AD groups. And that basically means that you assign security roles with Power Automate. So would somebody please think about the security roles? So you are not only adding your user to the groups, but in the end to the security role, because the security role is linked to the group with the team. This makes it pretty easy and pretty cool. You can build really cool onboarding processes with that are fully automated, which I really like. And sharing apps and flows with members of the group is really easy. And that is basically Dataverse teams. The naming is really confusing though. I've seen, I think Chris Huntingford was talking about Dataverse team groups. That was his idea for naming it, to distinguish it from teams and teams. It's a little bit confusing, and maybe that's the only reason I don't see it with my customers. So it was a little bit yeah, a little showcase of my favorite feature in the last time in my governance project, basically. And the one thing that I have to say, or LTSU has to say, is thank you very much. And that's it.
Michael, thank you. This is awesome. Yeah, very good. I mean, sometimes this can be a topic that can be a little bit hard to consume, laborious, but you made it fun. You made it rad. You made it totally tubular, right, with the 80s theme. So very, very cool. Thank you very, very much. All right. Well, let's move on to presenter number 2, aka Lewis, improving UX with contextual data using Microsoft Graph and more. Lewis, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Yeah, so I'm going to discuss a little bit about UX today. We're going to question the idea of what UX actually is and talk about some stuff around contextual data and how we can get that from Graph and some other places. So let's switch. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Lewis. I'm a BizApps MVP. I left sixth form or high school about a year ago. I work in a partner called ANS Group. I'm the author of a blog called No Code Lewis, where this year I'm trying to do 365 posts in 365 days. And yeah, there's a bunch more stuff on that slide that you can take a look at. So yeah, today we're going to take a little look at what user experience is. We're going to take a look at what contextual data is, some real life consumer examples of contextual data, sort of the stuff that you might see on your phone or that you use on a daily basis, some of the new stuff coming out from vendors. We'll take a look at some low-code examples that I've built. Then we'll take a look at using Microsoft Graph to surface context in Power Platform solutions, and I'll give you some takeaway tips. And I promise to do it all in the time that I've got. So the user experience bit I want to talk about first. Now, the thing that I want to get away from and that I think sometimes we confuse a little bit is the fact that sometimes we sort of say or think of user experience as just GUI or a graphical user interface. Now, that isn't the case. And first of all, it's not, user experience isn't just a graphical user interface. It's not even just a user interface. And there is a difference between those two things as well. So graphical user interfaces is the typical sort of the screen that we might see in an app or in a dashboard, something like that we can interact with using a mouse, a keyboard, tabbing through that kind of stuff. A user interface is the different ways that we might interact with that. It might not actually be that we can visibly see that interface. It might be a different way that we interact with a solution. But user experience is a lot wider than this, and it's a combination of loads of different things, with GUI or UI just being one part of it. We might think of stuff like if you receive like a tech product in the mail, the experience of opening that product, and that's part of the user experience end to end of having that product or that solution. And so it isn't just sort of visible interfaces that we see, and that's what I think we need to start to think a little bit differently about with user experience. And one of the things that we can sort of think about as a factor of user experience is how we use data in our solutions. Now, what I'd like to talk about is contextual data. So, and I'm not going to talk about this in terms of it being a type of data that we can use, but more how we use the data that we have around us and that sits within our platforms. So I'm sort of thinking of this as the data that we surface in solutions in alternative ways to just listing rows from a table. So less the kind of thing of just opening a page in Dynamics and seeing a bunch of cases or accounts. And it's more the way that we use data to suggest sort of insights, give quick tips in applications, or just speed up processes with different sort of ways of delivering impact. So to give you a few examples of different types of data that we could use contextually. So I've got 3 categories that I've sort of had a think about here. And the first one being out the window context. So this is sort of data that sits wider than the digital ecosystem that we work in. And it's stuff about the weather, perhaps. It's traffic and public transport status. It's information about the current economy status and market data, or perhaps just stuff from the news. And then we might start to think about stuff that's a little bit closer to us, so within our digital ecosystem. And that's stuff like subconsciously created productivity data. And that's some of the stuff that we'll talk about with Microsoft Graph in a minute. It's the stuff like the calendar entries we make, the Teams messages that we send, all of that kind of stuff. Then we've got stuff like customer data, business commercial data, such as pricing of solutions and products. We've got device information, such as the different Windows devices that we use that we could access through Graph via Intune. And then we've got a third category being operational context. That's stuff like our employees' availability, their skill sets, whether our different sites that we use at our company are accessible. Have they got accessible entrances? Have they got surveillance running? That kind of stuff. Different processes that we use in our organization, stuff like how our resources are booked and all of that kind of stuff. Now, this is a bunch of different data that we might use sort of in our business, in our companies, wider than our organizations, just with the general public, stuff like weather, all of that kind of stuff. But we can use it inside of our solutions to deliver impact by using this data contextually. So if I give you a few examples, and one of the ones that we've been hearing about loads and loads recently is Copilot in Microsoft 365. Now, Copilot takes advantage of contextual data by pulling stuff all over from the Microsoft Cloud ecosystem. And this is kind of taking that data that sits within the digital ecosystem. It's not quite as broad as perhaps the out the window context and thinking about the current market status, the news, that kind of stuff. But it takes stuff like in Outlook, in Teams, it takes the messages that we've sent, the emails that we've sent, the documents that we've created, the stuff in Dynamics 365 about an account, and it pulls all of that data together on the current thing that we're doing to suggest insights and sort of make the things that we do sped up and deliver some more impact. Now, another example that might resonate with you a little bit more is Siri suggestions. If any of you have an iPhone in your pocket, stuff like getting into the car and starting driving. I know my iPhone always tells me that it's on Do Not Disturb because I'm driving. That's using that contextual data of me driving to silence anything that's coming in on my iPhone. Anything like the apps that I commonly use, I might get suggestions to open them at a specific time of day where I've previously used that app in that time of day. It might be that I've just gotten in the car, and at that time of day, commonly I go to a specific location and my iPhone will tell me here's directions to this place. You might want to take this route to avoid some traffic. And that's using that contextual data again to sort of speed up the things that we do and deliver better impact. Now, there is a low-code example that I want to share with you in a moment, and that's the Call a Clinician solution that I developed and released to the community on my blog, lowcodelewis.com. And now the problem here that I looked at with some people in healthcare was the need to sort of get hold of clinicians when there isn't, loads of available resource on a ward or in a hospital in a specific location, and we need some more support from a clinician that might be further away. And now the problem that we had when thinking about the traditional process around this is the kind of thing where, okay, so first I need to figure out who in Outlook I can use that has a relevant job title that might mean that they have the skills that I need. Then I need to open up their calendar, which is an additional task. I need to check their availability. Then I need to open up an additional application, which might be Teams or Slack or whatever I use to communicate. And I need to message that person to get them to come to me. So I've wasted, maybe 5 minutes just every time I need to get additional help from a clinician in a healthcare scenario, where really I could have just clicked 3 different buttons in an app that uses contextual data to get those sort of processes automated. And that's what I've done with this solution. So this solution uses Microsoft Graph and context from the digital ecosystem to return information on clinicians' availability based on their calendar availability and presence in Microsoft Teams. So I'll show you that in a moment. But before we do that, let's take a little closer look at Graph. So Microsoft Graph is basically a platform that we can use with an API that lets us get hold of contextual, or lets us get hold of data that we can use contextually from our digital ecosystem being the Microsoft Cloud. So we can get hold of things like Microsoft Teams messages, we could get hold of device information, stuff about our co-workers, different insights and all sorts that we can use to just deliver impact with our solutions. So there is one thing that I want to talk about before we sort of dive into a bit of a demo, and that's about how you might want to use Microsoft Graph in your environment. And I've picked this slide out, and it is a bit more technical, but I think it's quite important. Now, one of the easiest ways to just get to grips with using Graph in your tenant is to, hey, knock up an app registration, assign some application permissions. That means that you get access to whatever data you need, use a simple HTTP step in a Power Automate flow, plug in the different bits of information that you need to interact with that form of authentication to Azure, and then you get your data back. But that's a little bit risky, and it gives us a bit too much access to information sometimes. Now, there's 2 different types of permissions that we can use when accessing information from Azure AD secured APIs, Graph being one of those. Now we've got delegated permissions and application permissions. Delegated basically requires two things. It requires the application and the user's context. An application permission just requires the application to be running by itself. It doesn't require a signed-in user to be present. Now the problem with that is it means that when we're using application permission, there isn't a check against the user to see what they've got access to. It means I literally get access to all of the objects for the permission that I have in my tenant. Now that means that if I have an application permission to see people's calendar information, I can suddenly see everyone's calendar information in the organization if that's been approved. And that means that I might be able to jump on a Teams call that my CEO's on, which isn't probably the right idea. So that's when we're going to stick with delegated permissions, which we're only able to use if resources can have permission scoped to a single user. But for what we need to do in this case, that's going to be possible in the majority of cases. So if I just jump across into a bit of a demo, I'm going to show you a solution that I've built. Now, the first thing I'm actually going to mention is the Microsoft Graph Explorer. Now, you can use Microsoft Graph Explorer to basically test out different requests that you can get that you can use with Microsoft Graph. There's a bunch of different sample queries and all of the resources that you can access with Graph in this tab over here. Now, Microsoft Graph works with a bunch of different types of tenants. So you can work with your typical enterprise and business tenants. You can also work in education environments to get hold of sort of information like assignments from Microsoft Teams for Education. So it does work across those different platforms. Now, yeah, definitely take a look at Graph Explorer. You're able to sort of run queries and get sample data back. You can even sign in with your user's context to interact with the data in your tenant. And if you click on this sort of icon here, you can read the documentation from the request URL that you've added in there. Now, I'm going to jump into the Azure portal here, and I thought I was on the right screen over here, but let me just navigate to what I need. So basically, I've got an app registration set up in my Azure AD tenant, and that's got a single permission assigned against it for my caller clinician solution. Or it's got two permissions actually, because one is by default. One is the user.read permission for Microsoft Graph. That's always added to app registrations as default. Then I've got the presence.read.all delegated permission, which means I'm going to be able to access any of the presence information for all of the users in my organization, which I, as a user, am already able to access, because that's something I could hop into Teams and just search up a user and see their presence information for. Now, I've got one more thing sort of set up on here, which is a redirect URI. This is basically what's going to let me work with the context of my user when I create a custom connector in Power Platform. When I create a connection for that custom connector for the first time, I'm going to have to accept that I'm giving access to those permissions, and this is the bit that makes that work. I've also then got a client secret set up that I've then got stored in an Azure Key Vault. That's one of the things that I'm going to reference on the Power Platform side. So let's jump into that and have a quick look at the solution that I've got here. The first thing that I've got is a bunch of environment variables. Now, this is all the stuff that I need to use to control authentication when I'm making my requests to Microsoft Graph. So I've got stuff like my resource URL, the authentication stuff like my secret tenant ID and client ID. Now, if I look at my secret, I'm not actually going to jump into any of these, but this is referencing an Azure Key Vault. It is possible to use a text environment variable, but I'd always recommend using Azure Key Vault as and when you can to properly secure your secrets. Now, the next thing that I've got in my solution is a custom connector to get my presence information from Microsoft Graph whilst being able to use my delegated permissions, which I can't just do with a HTTP step. So here I'm basically I have a single action to get my presence information. I have a bit of a defined response that gives me my availability and that kind of stuff. Now what I've got is a couple of Dataverse tables where I'm basically matching clinicians to clinicians to skills. So let's take a look at this blood test. I've got a bunch of different clinicians that can do this skill. And then finally, I've got a Canvas app where I'm going to select the current location I'm in within a hospital. I'm going to just select the skill that I need. And then I'm going to have clinicians returned, which also shows me their availability for what their availability at that current time. Then I can simply just click this Teams button. That's going to send a notification to them, and it's going to have them come and help me with what I need. Now that saves those 5 minutes of having to go between those different platforms, where really I can just be using contextual data to speed up those processes. So if I just leave you on a few sort of takeaway points. So I definitely say, remember that user experience isn't the same as just a graphical user interface. It's not even the same as a user interface. Don't just use context from the platform. Think wider. Think of that out the window context, the stuff in the market, the news, weather information, all of that kind of stuff. Compare and take inspiration from leading consumer market products like Microsoft Copilots or Siri suggestions. Those are the sort of examples that use contextual data in really effective ways. Check out the Microsoft Graph Explorer, and always be careful when it comes to assigning permissions to an app registration for Microsoft Graph. Remember to always add the lowest permission level possible to achieve the requirement, and delegate it where possible first. And on that note, I will hand back over to you, David.
Awesome, Lewis. Very, very useful information. Love the Better Together story that you brought together here with Graph and Power Platform. Super useful. Really great job. We'll have an opportunity, everybody, to ask some questions in the chat, as well as our Power Platform our community call conversations after the call. With that in mind, though, let's move on to the one and only Azure McFarlane, pushing the platform with the power of Docusign and Automate. Azure, take it away.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the community call. I'm really excited to be with you here today. I guess I should share my screen. That might help just a little bit. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Automate and Docusign. So pushing the platform. Thanks, David, for making a lot of alliteration, not assonance, to get this title together. I'm going to start with like an introduction to myself, and then we'll go into the demo. I will be honest, the demo gods are not on my side today, so you will get to see a little bit of oopsie. Oh, sorry. And we'll just keep rolling. All right, let's see. All right, so a little bit about me. I am the real Azure. The baby cloud. I'm a senior consultant at Hitachi Solutions. I'm based out of Montgomery County, Maryland, which is about 30 minutes outside Washington, D.C. I'm a Microsoft BizApps MVP. And fun fact, my background is not in tech. So my background's in biochemistry and manufacturing. I worked for pharmaceutical plants for about 8 years before I discovered Power Automate. And then as you can see, Azure, Automate, Flowmanst were together forever. Absolutely love Automate. I discovered it in 2019 on the job, and then officially transitioned into consulting last winter, I guess last February. Some other things about me: I'm a long distance runner, and I really like spicy agua, or sparkling water. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Docusign. If you're not familiar with this, Docusign is an e-signature tool where you can send and receive secured documents. I purchased my house over the course of the pandemic, like in 2020, and because nobody was going outside and people didn't want to share pens because, germs, a lot of my document signing was using electronic signatures. Depended on if it was the bank or real estate agent, it might have been Adobe, it might have been Docusign, but all of them do something very similar, which is kind of eliminating this need for having to be in a place with a physical pen to sign a document. This is especially helpful when you've got people in various locations too, and you can't all be in the same room. Also, I know we've all had scenarios where somebody will send us like a PDF of something that they want us to sign off on, and then they send it to us via email, and then you have to have a printer, or you have to go to FedEx or Kinko's or whatever to print it out and then sign it and then maybe scan it back in. And I have to be honest, I'm a millennial and I don't own a printer at this point, so I spend a lot of time at Kinko's. So what we can do with Docusign is kind of eliminate some of this manual weight as well, and I'll explain in our use case how this will be applicable too. So this little graphic is saying, hey, we can take some data from a system, from a computer, right? If we're trying to get rid of our manual thing, we can put it inside a document, which is what's there in the middle, and then we can have Docusign shuttle this to a recipient, right, via email, and they'll click on a button, and I'll show you what this looks like too, and then we can return even some of that data back to a system, or just keep the document, right, and file it away somewhere. Docusign has a portal, which technically we aren't going to touch. Traditionally, what you would do is if you have a document that needs to be signed or you're sending to somebody, you would log into the portal, you would upload a document, you would add some tags to say, this is the information I need you to fill in. You might put some pre-populated data in there, and then you'd send it to the person. But the thing is, what if you have a high volume of documents or something that you're doing on a more repetitive basis? And so in our use case, we're going to pretend that we're a human resources group and we're sending out job offers to celebrities who are now going to be part of Baby Cloud Inc. So I'm going to go into the demo to show you how we can do this. All right, so I have, we're pretending like this is our system. Sorry, I will increase this because I have a large screen. And we have Baby Cloud Inc. That's going to be my company. And we see we've got some celebrities employed in here at this point. Anne Hathaway is our newest candidate. She's decided to retire from The Princess Diaries. And she is now going to be a software developer here at Baby Cloud Inc. Okay. She's going to be making some really cool stuff. So we've taken her employee profile, right? Normally this might be a paper form. We have now converted our form into an app. And so now HR has the job to take care of the onboarding documents, the sending of the job offer, right? And if you've got a bunch of people onboarding throughout the year, right, our offer letters, if we're doing them manually, are going to look different for each person, right? Everybody has a different name, phone number, what the salary is, their start date, and having to type this in manually each time is going to be a bit cumbersome. So let's take a look at the job offer letter template that I have. Let's increase this if I can. And so this is what my template's going to look like. Right now, I've had to set up a document with some fields. So we're going to use some dynamic content from Power Automate to fill in some of this data. And then, so we have employee name, employee address, a few other things. And then I have some fields. This is just some onboarding documentation. I'm sending everything in one package just for simplicity's sake. Down here, I have information that I need the employee to fill in now. So they're filling out like an employee profile, right? So it could be, I already have their name, I have their address, but I don't have their cell phone number, I don't have their social security number, their emergency contacts or anything. So in this case, I can request from the user, instead of them having to print out a form and send it back to me, I can have them fill everything out in Docusign and I can get that information back. We could even report that data back to the model-driven app as well if we wanted to. And I'm not going to show that today, but kind of the possibilities are a little endless. So we've got a template here that we're going to use. Normally, we would fill this out by hand. We're going to use Docusign to help us populate some of this and a fair amount of automate to get this done. And so what's going to happen is we're going to send this document to Anne Hathaway. She's got her, I'm in her email inbox right now. Shh, don't tell her. But we're going to be able to open up the document and see and be able to sign for it and everything, and then get a response back. Okay, so we've got a couple of flows that are attached to this too. I'm explaining a little bit of the background because once I hit the button, it does everything for us. So we've got a flow, I think it's this one, which is the whole gambit of what we're doing. So on the back end, we've got Dataverse, where we're storing all of our data right from our model-driven app. And we say, get me the data from the employee record. And if we say in our app, we have some onboarding tasks that I have created in here. We have email onboarding forms. And if we navigate to here, we have information, right, that we need to put in, some notes. And then we have, do we want to send the onboarding documents, yes or no? And upon the trigger of this toggle, and we save the record, it's going to start this flow. And so what the flow is doing is once that toggle is toggled to yes, we're then going to do a bunch of stuff. So I've taken a Microsoft Word template. So we've taken our job offer letter. We are then going to create a copy of it with Anne Hathaway's name and the day's date. We're going to set a bit of a delay because then we need to fetch from that document that information so we can then put it in a Docusign envelope, right? So we're doing two parts. We have information that we would like to add to the file, and then we also have information that we need to get from Anne Hathaway, right? So we need to create some fields so we can return some responses. So there's a ton of steps in here. Effectively, we create a Docusign envelope. So this is going to be the email that comes in. It's going to come from DocuSign saying, congratulations, Anne. Please see, the enclosed letter. And please sign the documents. And then what we have to do is we have to create a bunch of tabs. So in our job offer template, these are our tabs. This is the way we have to signify kind of our tags or anchors to say, can you put a blank field here for somebody to fill in? So the ones with the slashes are for DocuSign. The ones with the square brackets are for the dynamic content that we are putting inside of the document. Okay. I think there's a lot of tabs here, so don't worry. And this is where the demo gods are just like, we're going to give you 2 today. We're going to give you 2 tabs. So don't worry about it. You'll get the gist of it. And I put these all in a scope because there's so many, right? And you can understand that if you're having to manually fill out this document every single time, you've got 15 fields, it can get a little tiresome. And so after we set all the tabs, we are then going to send the envelope to the person. And then I have one more flow. So when we are finished, when somebody signs off on the document in DocuSign, we then just go create a copy of it and stick it in a document library. And it's going to give us the PDF and everything that Anne Hathaway's filled in. So then there again, we have less paper. Okay. I hope that kind of sets a little bit of the stage for how we do this, because once I hit this button, it's really going to take 30 seconds and then we're done. And that's why we automate things, because it makes it quick and easy. Okay. Let's see. All right, so we have Anne. I'm going to say Anne looks great on the team. I'm just going to check to see if, let's see, I'm going to change her. She's full-time. She's a software developer. She's going to watch Princess Diaries all day and bring donuts on Friday, because I feel like that should be good. We're going to say she's going to make 70K, and we can't wait to meet her. Right, her manager is also going to be Denzel Washington, because that seems appropriate. So I'm going to be the HR contact. We're going to save this, and then we're going to go over to our onboarding tasks for DocuSign. And so I have assigned myself to the task, and we're just going to go over here and click on Send Onboarding Documents, say that this task is in progress, and we're going to save and close. And then now we wait for the magic to happen. So it'll probably take about 30 seconds behind the scenes. Let's see if we can go find. Let's see. I think it's this one. Yeah. Let's see it running. All right, it's running. So it should run all the way through. Nothing terribly exciting is going to happen. This condition step takes a while because I have to build in a delay. When you are creating a file and then need to get additional content from it, you have to wait for the file to be created. So the delay is the one that takes a little bit of time, and then adding all of the DocuSign actions in here. So it's adding a bunch of the tabs. Looks like it's doing pretty well. Okay, and we should receive an email. There we go. We've got an offer of employment from, should be, well, it won't let me do it, Baby Cloud Inc. So we've now got this, everything that we've put in this offer letter, right, now is in one really sweet package in DocuSign. Anne doesn't even have to log into a portal. She doesn't have to do anything, right? Now we go on, let's review this document. And we were able to put in text, right? I was able to use some dynamic content to say, please return this to me in a week. This is when your offer is going to expire. So let's review the document. And again, no login needed at all. So this is great for right now. Anne is external to our organization. So we couldn't send her, say, an approval via email just to say, are you accepting or no, you're not. So that's why we're going this DocuSign route. And so it's got Anne's name. We've pulled this content from the model-driven app. And we're going to go ahead and say, yes, we want to read disclosures. And look, we have a fully created offer letter with specific information to Anne, so her address, her what am I trying to say? Her title, when she's starting, what her job description is, everything that we pulled from there, right? And it has me as the HR representative. So there's nothing for her to do here except to read. But if we scroll down, we've got some additional things like here's how you can do your training. Here's how you can do a few other things. We have a few areas where Anne needs to fill in. And all this employee information, right, also came from the model-driven app. There's no reason for her to keep repeating the information that she's done. And then this is where the demo gods go, said, not today. One thing that I didn't do before I pressed play on this is you see the black text behind these boxes. You have to make them invisible, but I did want to show you what the fields looked like. So what I should have done was I should have made all of this text white so it's invisible. However, Power Automate can still see the anchors in the background. So it's not supposed to look like that. One tip. But here's where it's going to start doing a few funky things. So I'm going to put in my cell phone number. Yeah, so we're just repeating everything here, and this is not supposed to happen. So there you go, demo gods for one. But emergency contact information is going to do the same exact thing. Once I figure out what I did this time, I'll be sure to let you know. Anyway, we'll pretend Anne's put in her information right. HR is like, cool, we got this. Anne's then going to sign this form, and we get to decide, like, do you want to use the generic Docusign signature here? Do you want to draw your own? Do you want to upload your own? You can do any of them. We're just going to say whatever's here is fine. We're going to adopt and sign, and then we just say approve. I'm going to say no thanks. I don't want a copy of the document, but this would be really helpful for Anne's records if she wanted to do that. So we're going to say no thanks, and ta-da, we are finished signing. And so I end up getting, because this is tied to my Hitachi account, I end up getting an email saying, hey, Anne Hathaway has filled out her documentation. And if we wanted to do additional, let me show you. Yep. So Anne Hathaway has viewed an offer, right? And so we have a copy of the document. This gets saved in the Docusign portal. But what we also did was said, why don't we just make a copy of this and stick it in SharePoint? That way we don't even have to touch the portal whatsoever, right? So we should have one more thing. Let's go check in our new hire sign documents. It says it's empty, and it shouldn't because it gave us a document. So maybe it's just taking a little bit of time. Thanks, demo gods. Appreciate it. Okay, well, I think that's, there we go, perfect. So we've got the document that was created from the offer template that we had to pull content from to then make the Docusign envelope. And we could go ahead and delete this Word document like once we're finished with it, because Anne's not going to need it. We're not going to need the offer letter again, unless Anne comes back and says, hey, I need a little bit more money, which is possible. So we could leave that, but this would give us the signed copy of Anne Hathaway's offer letter, right? And pending everything had worked properly, would actually be able to see it. But we can see her signature here. And then Docusign gives you the ability to say, when did the person sign it, and some extra documentation. So that is pretty much the completion of my demo. I'll go back to my slides for like 2 seconds. There you go. Technology. So if you would like to start using Docusign, you can sign up for a free Docusign developer account. When you work in Power Automate, there is a Docusign like regular kind of account that you have, which you have to pay for, but Docusign's been doing some really, really cool stuff so that you can use this for free. So you sign up with an account, and then there's a connector that is a Docusign demo connector that you would use with that. It's free $99. John Levesque, who used to work for Microsoft, now works for Docusign, and he's been really amped up about making this work. You should take a look at some of his videos for Docusign that he has on YouTube. It's a great way to figure out how many more things you could do with this. And then the last step is profit. And that's it. Thank you very much. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on the interwebs here.
Awesome, Azure. Thank you, as usual. Fantastic job. Thank you, everybody. Let me share my screen and we can close out the call. All right. Well, I tell you what, holy cow. Yes, that's Winnie the Moo. She agrees that this was a fantastic, fantastic collection of demos today. So thank you all for presenting. Let's show everybody a little gratitude for how we feel. They did an awesome job. Now, we've got some resources for you. First of all, you may have some questions for our amazing presenters today. So we have our community call conversations. Let's continue the conversation. This could even be just you telling them how much you appreciate the presentation they did. That is a conversation. That is a contribution. We would love to see you do that. So if you would like to engage with any of our presenters today, Michael, Lewis, or Azure, feel free to snap that QR code. Use those links on the bottom. I will put them into the chat as well after the call, so that you can connect directly to that Power User site. It is free to sign up for if you don't already have an account, and let them know they did a great job. Ask any questions about their presentations and engage and collaborate with them. It is a great way to get involved with others in the community, so we encourage you to do that. We also have some more resources for you, things like our community front door, videos, samples, all of our communities. Links are in the chat for you to access all of those wonderful goodness. And of course, you love community calls because you're on one. So we want to provide you a reminder that we've got lots of community calls available to you. Our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Microsoft-only speakers call is on Tuesday. Now, it is on a summer break because there's a lot of vacations going on. It will be back on the 22nd of August. All of our other calls are continuing as planned. So the Power Platform, which you are on now, is monthly. We'll see you in a month, of course. Office add-ins and the bi-weekly Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community, which is tomorrow, and the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework. You can access all these at ak.ms/community/calls. Get those ICS files downloaded and added to your calendar. You can also check them out at ak.ms/community/meetup. Now, we would also love to get your feedback on these calls. They're a great way for us to let our management know how much you appreciate these calls, anything that you would like to see us do more of or differently. We appreciate your feedback. Please go fill it in. Again, even if it's just positive feedback, that is helpful too, because we're looking to amp up some of the things that we're doing here, and we need the support to be able to do that. Well, the recording will be available within 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 Community YouTube channel. You can access that at ak.ms/community/YouTube or ak.ms/community/videos. If you see that it's available in the chat, go to download it. It won't let you. Sadness. Just make sure you go subscribe to all of our YouTube accounts, Power Platform, Community, and Developer, and you will be alerted as soon as it's available, which will be within 24 hours. You can follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev, at M365PNP. The next call, August 16th, 1 month from today, the third Wednesday of every month, and you can get that at ak.ms/Power Platform Community Call. So thank you, everyone. You are fantastic contributors to the community. We appreciate all you're doing. Have a wonderful rest of the week and a good weekend.